Hello, BookTube. Just got the new New York Review of Books in the mail. I thought we'd go through the table of contents together and see what we can find. Not so much. The first thing that you're supposed to do when you get the new NYRB is to check for Steve blurbs in the paid advertisements from publishers. But I looked through this and there aren't any. So there are books that I reviewed, but there are no blurbs by me. So instead, we'll just go through the table of contents, which I haven't really studied. This is the New York Review of Books, as it says right on the cover, that will present reader responses to the gigantic controversy that engulfed the New York Review of Books last month. The decision by then editor Ian Baruma to run a piece, an essay, a personal essay by Jian Ghomeshi, the Canadian interviewer who fell into disgrace for beating up women during sex. It was a huge, protracted Canadian case, a trial that made headlines every day. And he lapsed into the memory hole, as such people tend to do, and Ian Baruma, who was a very new editor to the New York Review of Books, decided to run a piece by Ghomeshi in which he talks about his experience. And it sparked an enormous outrage, and Ian Baruma was almost instantaneously no longer editor of the New York Review of Books. So that letters section is going to be fascinating. But before we get there, let's look at some of what they do and see if it's a good table of contents. So, like, for instance, the very first thing is Drew Gilpin-Faust, who's fantastic, reviewing Song in a Weary Throat by Polly Murray, which we saw on this channel. It was just given a gorgeous reprint. And it's a fantastic book by a fantastic writer. So that's great that it's getting a full-length review. Then the next one is an art exhibit review. Then an editorial about the suffocation of democracy. Oh, look at that! Stacy Schiff, the author of Cleopatra and the Witches, reviews A Life of My Own by the great biographer Claire Tomalin, which I read and loved. I wrote a review of it myself. Then Jacob Weisberg does Anti-Social Media, How Facebook Disconnects Us and Undermines Democracy, and also Jaron Lanier's book, 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now. A very thin book and extremely provocative. Two books that have the opinion of Facebook that the glass is not only half empty, but it's entirely empty, and it's shattered and it's cutting you. or the glass is half full, but it's of carbolic acid, so that your merest taste will kill you. The conclusions of both books, in one way or another, is that Facebook and social media in general is poison. It's corrosive to your happiness, to your accurate view of the world, to your sleep at night, to your self-image. And I don't know. I'm getting a lot of books. This last 2 weeks, I've been bombarded with books along those same lines, and that always makes me suspicious. When there's a bandwagon being jumped on, that always makes me suspicious. Don't you, for instance, find tremendous value in social media? Or is that just the idea of a very old person who remember what it was like never to be in touch with anyone unless you wrote to them or gave them a telephone call? I mean, am I the only person here who thinks that the idea that you could go on something like Facebook or Goodreads or Twitter, type in a name of someone you haven't spoken to in 20 years and find them, get back in touch with them, and start up a dialogue that would otherwise have failed completely? And also all the fun stuff and all the interesting stuff. I don't know. The more of these books I read, the more I think this is really a case of people misusing social media rather than social media being inherently bad. But there is a case. Some of these books make a case for inherent badness, and some of the case is very interesting. So that's fantastic. That'll be fun to read. Let's see, what else have we got here? The Trials of Nina McCall. Don't know it. Adam Thirlwell reviews is this a new translation of Alfred Dödlin's Berlin Alexanderplatz? There might be a new translation of it. I haven't seen it yet. James Gleick, the science writer, reviews The Perfectionists by Simon Winchester, which I really liked. And I didn't expect that I would. Going in, I thought, oh, this is about precision engineering. This is going to alternate between the life stories of engineers and the work of engineers, meaning there'll be no hope. But instead, Simon Winchester is just a heck of a storyteller, so it worked on me. That's great. View of an Empire at Sunset by Carol Phillips. Okay. I thought that was very interesting. It's a book I really need to reread. David Oshinsky does a review of a whole bunch of books on mental health. Insane, America's Treatment of Mental Illness by Lisa Roth. No One Cares About Crazy People by Ron Powers, which I reviewed and totally loved. What a book. What a book. Oh my. Genetics in the Madhouse by Theodore Porter, and a book we've seen on this channel, Stacey Horn's Damnation Island, about the horrible prototypical beginnings of some kind of mental asylum in 19th century New York. That is a book that has stuck with me. I wish I'd reviewed it. Can't wait to get... I don't have it anymore. I can't wait to get the paperback. But that has stuck with me. And it got a lot of attention. This is marquee level attention right here. So that's wonderful. Ian Fraser, the great nonfiction writer Ian Fraser, reviews The Last Cowboys by John Branch, which is a terrific book about a family of... in the American West, in the contemporary American West, a family of cowboys and rough men and smart, sarcastic women. It's a story about their plight. It's a story about this one family's attempt to ride out an economy that no longer wants a lot of what they do for a living and have for generations, but that is opening up other opportunities that are a little strange and take some riding and some adaptation. The book is about that, but the thing you'll remember is the family. The family is just so wonderfully portrayed. Funny and touching. You feel like you know them by the end of the book. Boy, oh boy, that's great. That's been out for a while, too. Like Damnation Island. It's the way with the New York Review of Books. They like the London Review of Books, then they don't really care about the book's release date. They'll wait and gestate on whatever they have until it's ready. Okay. All right. Well, Francine Prose reviews A Terrible Country by Keith Gesson. But what else have we got? Oh, Adam Hochschild, again, reviews a whole bunch of books on the alt-right in America, starting with Hitler's American Model by James Whitman, but also Behold America, The Entangled History of America First, and The American Dream by Sarah Churchwell, and Ben Fountain's book, Beautiful Country Burn Again, which is brilliant. I don't think I've reviewed any of those books, but Beautiful Country Burn Again I loved. I highly recommend it. Wow, okay, well that's a really good table of contents. There's lots of really good books in there. And with the New York Review of Books, you know that it'll be good writing. But let's turn to the main event. Let's turn to the letters page and see just what they do. Because I guarantee you that this letters page is going to be just bombarded in reader outrage. And yes, it is. Okay. Oh my god. Oh, it goes on. Okay, the letters page is twice as long as usual. And it is bombarded. Wow. Okay. The piece was called Reflections from a Hashtag. Look at all of these outraged responses. Why? Wow. Okay, let's read a couple. This is history. This is caused a major thing at the New York Review of Books. One letter here is from Lisa Gunther, who lives in livelong Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, the home of BookTube's own Sean the Bookmaniac. The fact that you published Gomeshi's piece, Point of View, on the numerous allegations against him without minimal fact-checking is reprehensible. For one thing, he was not fired by the CBC because of, quote, allegations circulated online, close quote, by an ex. He was fired because he literally showed CBC brass photos of a woman he had beaten the hell out of and tried to pass it off as, quote, rough sex. Oh, and there are no such things as criminal charges of hair-pulling, etc., not even in Canada. He was, in fact, charged with multiple counts of sexual assault and one of overcoming resistance by choking. That's just one paragraph. If you're going to publish his account, it should at least be factually accurate. This story was covered extensively in Canada, and there are many news sites that detailed the allegations and the trials. You have email, so I have to imagine you have access to the internet and know how to use it. Next time some artsy sociopath looking to redeem himself pitches you an essay, spend half an hour on Google first. Oh my. Okay, they don't pull punches in Saskatchewan. Okay, what's another one? This one is from British Columbia, Allegra Sloman. The ink is dry, so I have heard, on the print run you authorized that bears Gomeshi's name. As a woman who lived in Canada during Jian's trial, during which he was acquitted, I learned exactly how the rich and powerful at the CBC and elsewhere have protected him, because he was a much cosseted and valuable brand, and they extended that protection and courtesy in the teeth of the pain and suffering he inflicted on the women around him, not all of whom he troubled to sexually assault, some of them he was just beastly to. In publishing his words, you've made it clear that the sad experience of a rapist hung out to dry, but escaping consequences due to elderly laws and incompetent crown lawyers, will always be more interesting and worthy to a powerful broker of modern tastes than either the stories or the dignity of the women he hurt. Thanks for the reminder. The problem, ongoing, is that the role of the New York Review of Books as a maker and breaker of tastes, as a trendsetter and a quality spotter, and as a literary beacon has been jeopardized. If your goal is to rehabilitate Mr. Gomeshi so he may be returned to the fold of cultural critics and once again be a brand among brands, congratulations, you may have achieved your aim. However, your credibility is shot. Hope it was worth it. Okay, this is just as bad as I thought. Oh, well, look, okay. I don't think there's more than 3 of you who are interested in any of this, but we'll forge ahead because this is fascinating. This is my world. Look at that. There's an inset here with many, many signatures that strikes a counter note. And you know, I really shouldn't worry. I made a point in the second half of 2018 to just decide not to worry about how few of you are finding any of this stuff interesting, because this channel shouldn't work anyway. Not on this subject nor on any other subject. Every once in a while, as an intellectual exercise, I pick a previous video of mine at random and watch it from start to finish. And I am still baffled why anyone else would do that. I mean, Deb, maybe. But the rest of you? No. But nevertheless, so let's see what this is. Because this is something oh my, this is a counter note. This is something I didn't think the New York Review of Books would do. To the editors, as contributors to the New York Review of Books, we are writing to express our dismay at the departure of Ian Baruma from the editorship of the review. Ian Baruma has proved to be an outstanding editor, as accomplished in this role as he was as writer for the review. Under his guidance, the NYRB has maintained the highest intellectual standards, extended its range, and expanded its body of contributors. That's true. And that was only starting. He very much wanted more voices in the New York Review of Books, which has been famous for 40 years for having a sort of small coterie of regulars. But anyway, we find it very troubling that the public reaction to a single article, reflections from a hashtag, repellent though some of us may have found that article, should have been the occasion for Ian Baruma's forced resignation. Given the principles of open intellectual debate on which the NYRB was founded, his dismissal in these circumstances strikes us as an abandonment of the central mission of the review, which is the free exploration of ideas. Okay. But, okay, well, that's fascinating on its own, but then the signatures. Oh my God, they just keep going and going. There's virtually every major writer who's ever written for the New York Review of Books. Neil Atchison, Anne Applebaum, John Banfield, Louis Begley, Alfred Brendel, David Bromwich, Simon Callow, Louisa Chang, Linda Colley, Robert Cottrell, Robert Darnton, their famous book writer, Morris Dickstein, Ariel Dorfman, Freeman Dyson, James Fenton, Orlando Fee, Francis Fitzgerald, Tim Flannery, Roy Foster, Ian Fraser, Linda Greenhouse, Max Hastings. Good Lord, the names just go on. This is all in alphabetical order. Eve Hoffman, Alan Hollinghurst. Just incredible. This is just Hermione Lee, Philip Lopate, Alison Lurie, Janet Malcolm, James Mann, Ian McEwen, Thomas Nagel, Fintan O'Toole, Joyce Carol Oates, Carol Phillips, Darrell Pinkney, Just on and on and on. All these people signed this letter saying that they are troubled by the fact that reflections from a hashtag got Ian Bruma fired. That's interesting. I wish that had worked. This was a horrible incident of scorched earth response. My first response when I saw the thing, I read the piece, of course. I heard about it first on social media forever and ever. And then I got the issue and I read the piece. And I thought, for the first 60 years of the New York Review of Books' lifespan, angry letters to the editor would have been the response, and it would have been sufficient. Ian Bruma is not a maniac. He's not frothing at the mouth sexist. He'd have read the letters like this. He would have run them all, and he would have learned his lesson. And that would have been that. It would have been just a bad call on a piece, which editors do. All of these people who signed this letter, I think, had the same reaction that I did, which is this is a terrifying precedent. But the NYRB staff responds, we understand our contributors' concerns. Rhea Hederman, the publisher of the review, has publicly said that Ian Bruma's departure was not a response to the outrage over reflections from a hashtag, and we strongly believe in Rhea's commitment to editorial independence. With regard to the necessity of open intellectual debate and the free exploration of ideas in our pages, we couldn't agree more. Okay, well, that was unfortunate. And I wish they hadn't done that. That is what's known in theological circles as a bald-faced lie. And it's bad enough to do that in a corporate memo to a bunch of drones down in receiving. It's much worse to do it in full view of not only some of the most intelligent writers in the English-speaking world, but it stands to reason some of the most intelligent readers in the English-speaking world, every single one of whom is going to know that is a bald-faced lie. What was the line? Rhea Hederman said that his departure was not a response to outrage over reflections on a hashtag. That is simply a lie. Whether you say that he quit because of that outrage, or whether you say that he was forced to resign, and the letter from all these contributors says he was forced to resign, one way or another, it was definitely only a response to the outrage over that piece. Saying otherwise insults the whole process of call and response. So I don't know why they did that. I would have probably left that out. Wow. Okay, well, this is just incredible. It just goes on and on. More and more letters. Shame on you. Printing letters on your actions in your next issue does not absolve you. And that's Robert Silverman from Professor Emeritus at Ohio State University. He calls this spread. He calls it ahead of time. Says printing letters on your actions in your next issue does not absolve you. Wow. Okay. A. Nelson from Toronto, Ontario. Notice all the outrage letters. Most of them are coming from Canada. What an absolute disgrace that you would choose to publish an article by Jean Domessi. I am enraged that you would let this serial sexual abuser begin his attempt at a mea culpa via your media. You have forever lost me as a reader. Okay. All right. Well, I need to read all these letters in detail, but that is the big draw for this issue, which is a shame because as we read, the issue itself has writing on a ton of great books. but the only thing that anybody in the American literary circles is going to care about is that letters column for this issue. I just wish, boy, it's leaving a bad taste in my mouth. I wish that the NYRB staff hadn't chosen to just outright lie. I don't care whether the publisher of the NYRB said it or not. It is an obvious black and white lie. Of course, Ian Bruma left the NYRB, whether he jumped or was pushed, in direct response to running that article, to the outrage over that article. Why say otherwise? Why say the sun is not up there in the sky to... Anyway, so those are the books in the NYRB this time around. I can't wait to dig in and read it because it's like I mentioned on this channel, it's always an extra thrill when you're reading someone else's writing on a book that you have considered, thought about, annotated, and then written about for an audience. That's always an extra thrill. I don't quite know how to describe it if you haven't tried it, but if you have tried it, believe it or not, well, I was going to say, believe it or not, it doesn't make you feel insecure. But then again, I know a lot of reviewers who do get insecure about doing that very thing. Let's just say it doesn't make me insecure and leave it at that. I love it, especially if the reviewer comes after me, finds some fault that I missed. I just love that. It makes me, I go, ooh, but I love it. I absolutely love it. It's nice, the feeling, and I get it, especially in an issue like with a table of contents like that, the feeling of having skin in the game is wonderful. The feeling of being part of a conversation, even in a minor way, is wonderful. I mean, the Christian Science Monitor is not the A-list. It's not the Washington Post or, you know, the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Chicago Tribune. It's one rung below, but still, it's 100 years old, and it's from my own hometown of Boston. So it's nice to be in a lot of those conversations. So, but anyway, that's going to wrap it up for now. I mentioned this story when it first broke, and this is the end of it. The next chapter will be when a new editor is named to the New York Review of Books. Less than a year after Ian Baruma took the job, a new editor will be named. And I don't think it's going out on a limb to say what so many commentators online have said, which is that it has to be a woman. And I don't know what I think about that. Ian Baruma is not a sexist. He is not an apologist for sexist. I think he had some sort of dug-in, stubborn idea behind running that piece, and I wish that he had a fully fleshed out power structure in the offices of the NYRB that had a long experience with him and could have talked him out of it, because he shouldn't have done it. But he should have stayed. The main point that all of those writers make before they are black and white lied to by the staff of the NYRB is true, which is that he was a really good editor. And it's a shame he will now never work again. This controversy will follow him forever. So he wants to give a speech at Rice University. There'll be brick-throwing picketers outside. He'll have to cancel. He'll be deplatformed, and so on and so forth, right down the line. And that the commentators on this story who said this is a little bit of an overreaction, even to a reprehensible editorial decision, I think those commentators were mostly right. And the sequel, where well, who knows? Whoever the new editor is, they're going to have to respond to this culture and to this critique. And I don't know what shape that response will take. And there's that side. That is part of the sequel. And the other part of the sequel is what happens to Ian Baruma. Those two things we'll just have to wait and see. But I don't think there'll be a second letters page about this in the New York Review of Books. I think it'll be back to normal next time with just an interim editor. If I were the New York Review of Books, well, first of all, again, I wouldn't just plain lie. Of course, Ian Baruma's departure is a response to the outrage overrunning that piece. Of course it is. So I wouldn't just say it isn't, just because our publisher says it isn't. It's still a lie, no matter who it comes from. But apart from that, if I were running the show, I know what I would do at the New York Review of Books. And that would be to just run it as an institution without an editor for a good long time. Let all of the dust settle. Let everyone calm down. And then name a new editor. But don't do it right away. Why would you do that? Why would you start somebody's editorial tenure, which is hard enough, even as it is? Why would you add to that difficulty by starting it in an atmosphere, a supercharged atmosphere like this? I wouldn't do it. The NYRB can run perfectly fine with its sub-editors running the show for a while. I would do that until probably next summer, and then, but we shall see. I will update you. But in the meantime, sorry for the tedium. It's just part of my world, so I thought I would make a video. It's just a reflex now to do. But I'll be back. I'll be back with ordinary book content. Don't you worry. Thank you, BookTube.